Welcome to our March Madness recap. We continue the series here. For this one, I have been slacking a little bit, been caught up with other things outside of here to give you the full coverage like I had the first 3 days of the tournament there, where I gave you the first half of each of the days there for the round of 64, round of 32. For this one, a little bit slacking in this department there. So for this video, it's going to be a full recap of the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and then once I'm done with that, we'll go back and kind of point out some of the games that I watched, some my opinions and so forth for each of them as well. No doubt we'll have an opinion for the Duke and UConn game. That was insane to watch. That was fantastic to see there. Absolute cinema of how it ended there. Again, we'll get a little bit more into that once we get to that point. Then we recap everything. So for the Sweet 16, starting from the top left going down. And of course, when we're done, vice versa for the right hand side here. So starting from the left here, Duke taking down St. John's 80-75 to move to the Elite 8. We had UConn taking down Michigan State in a close one, 67-63. Moving down even further here, the Cinderella story continues right now for Iowa, or at that point there, I should say, taking down number 4 Nebraska 77-71. Illinois takes down Houston 65-55. Moving from the top right going down. Arizona blows out Arkansas 109-88. That was definitely surprising to see there in that one. Purdue and Texas, that was a great game. They almost get upset there, avoid that there in the last second, 79-77. Move to Elite 8 there. Michigan versus Alabama. Michigan takes down Alabama 90-77. We have Tennessee with the upset there over Iowa State 76-62. And that does recap the Sweet 16. Now getting into the Elite 8, going from the top left down, we have, of course, the game of the tournament, potentially game of the year, how it was there. UConn storming back to win in a shocking, choke moment for the Duke there. Didn't even pass the ball, give it up there, turnover, logo shot to win it 73-72. They move on to the Final Four, going down here, Illinois and Iowa. Iowa's Cinderella story ends here with Illinois beating them 71-59 to move into the Final Four. We have Arizona Purdue. Arizona wins this one by a fair margin, 79-64. They punch their ticket to the Final Four as well. And we have Michigan cruising past Tennessee 95-62. And I'll give you a quick preview of the Final Four there. You have number 2 UConn versus number 3 Illinois. And you have both number 1s, Arizona and Michigan, going head-to-head there. So That wraps up the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and then going back quickly to my thoughts on this one here. Did not watch a ton. Tried to get caught up with other things going on outside of the sports field, and I did see a few bits and pieces of some of the games here. Duke and St. John's was definitely an exciting one. The parts that I did see there was room for St. John's, as probably for a lot of people outside of Duke, what was room for them. The farthest they've gone in a long time at this point for the Sweet 16. Unfortunately, that run ends there close, but maybe it was a precursor of what was going to happen in the Elite 8 for Duke in that one, but still an exciting game for this one. Michigan State and UConn. I thought Michigan State certainly had a decent chance to win this. So you look at the seedings, not that far off from an upset there. Good team all around, but again, their run ends here at the Sweet 16 there. UConn advances, try and get to the Final Four in 3 of the last 4 years at this point there. Again, maybe a little bit of a close call at this point here, now taking on the number 1 overall team in the bracket with Duke there. Scrolling down a little bit more, watched a little bit of Iowa and Nebraska. I can't really comment too much about it. I saw very few of that, so I can't give a thought on that as well. Same thing with Illinois and Houston. Just went back and watched some of the clips there. Again, overall, great game for Illinois in this one. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer than it was than 10 points. Not to say that's like absolutely getting blown out or smacked for that one, but certainly again, a little bit surprised. I thought it would have been closer to like the UConn Michigan State score in that one there. I was kind of rooting for Houston, especially how things ended last year in the championship game. Kind of, there was a small part of me room for them to kind of get back and get that redemption side of things to finally break through and win one. Unfortunately, for that head coach. So unfortunately, just wasn't able to do so. Was definitely surprised about Tennessee and Iowa State. Did not watch this game at all, but was certainly keeping track of the scores. Shocking that they came up there at that point there. So, fantastic run thus far. Even though it ends in the Elite 8, still amazing run for Tennessee at that point there. Michigan and Alabama, I thought it was closer than what it was. I know, something they talk about from Nate Oates, so they just have to get bigger, but still, I thought maybe a little bit closer than 90-77 at that point there. Their run ends maybe shorter than maybe some people expected to at this point. What else we have here? Purdue and Texas, that was a crazy ending at that point. I thought, again, while I was going through the scores there, they avoid the potential upset there for Texas moving into Elite 8. great game all around there. Again, what we've seen countless times in the tournament here, last second shots to win it. But still pretty exciting overall. I don't want to call them Cinderella because, I mean, even though they're number 11 seed, it's still Texas, and you can't compare them to High Point and VCU. Again, if you want to go off the seeding, like Iowa, Cinderellas for their remaining, bracket. But again, their run ends there. Still impressive, no doubt, for it. Too on top of that. And against the Final Four, before we even cover the main game, again, game of the year, certainly game of the tournament thus far. After that, watched a little bit of the other games too. Did not watch Michigan, Tennessee that much, kind of more the first half there. Tennessee had its moments early on, but was certainly, Michigan pulled away pretty fast in this one too. Again, maybe, Tennessee had a little bit of a fight in the first half at some points, but again, you see the score there, not even close for that. Same thing maybe like Illinois and Iowa. Yeah, did not watch too much of it, but again, more just trying to keep up with the scores as I was doing, busy with other things there. So maybe Final Four wise, at least for the scores, was not exciting. A little bit underwhelming compared to maybe the first two rounds we had there. But I would say, again, going back to Duke before we get to that, I think that truly made up for it at that point. That I think they're in the historic comeback for UConn in that point there. We'll get to that in a second when we get to there, and also Arizona, Purdue. Yeah, not too much really to say there. A little bit back and forth at times, but again, overall, you get the gist of the Elite Eight for this, where it was just pretty evident of what was happening there. Again, not like the first two rounds, very close. Even at times, even the Sweet 16, when you had some really good games there, just wasn't there. And it seemed like that was going to be the same case for Duke. And if it ended the way it did, yes, you were pretty underwhelmed of that. It was going to be great Final Four matches regardless, but a little bit underwhelming for the Elite Eight. But you have UConn and Duke. This was insane to see. I watched the second half. I didn't watch too much of the first half. I got busy with other things and that. Finally got home and watched the second half there. And it is insane what UConn did. You look at the scores for the first and second halves. They basically, almost literally to the T, flip the script on the scores. You have Duke outscoring UConn 44-29 at halftime. And then UConn comes out and they outscore them 44-28. It's just insane how it panned out. Duke becomes the first number one seed in the tournament's history to be up by 15 plus points and lose. They are now 134-1 in that record, holding that one loss in that record there, which is, again, it's insane to think about. And you look at for Boozer, why he didn't hold on to the ball. You were going to get fouled. Pretty confident you were going to make two shots, at least one shot there, and put UConn in a tough position where it's desperation act at that point there, where you kind of force a shot. Maybe it goes in still, maybe it doesn't. You never know that, but you rather take the foul and go to the line and trust your top guys on Duke to make the shots and end it there. I think it was just pretty self-explanatory at that point there. I think they were just trying to go for the kill shot, really, for the passing, just waste the clock down and stuff like that. Unfortunately, they mess up there. Give credit to Duke. Give credit to UConn. I don't want to make it all seem like it's Duke's fault, like collapse or yes, and then they can't force the person to pass the ball. That was on Duke's part. But give credit to UConn for blocking the pass, send it up there, and for them to make that logo shot to win it with 0.3 seconds left. Absolute stunner. One of the best moments in the tournament we've had in, if you want to say history, certainly in recent history, no doubt. But it's March Madness. That's why I rave about so much about it. This is one of the best moments ever in the entire year for sports. It is exciting, whether you're a basketball fan or not. It is entertaining. It's exciting. You have moments like this that can just happen instantly, and we've seen countless times throughout this bracket thus far, this tournament, of last second wins. Kind of going back to Duke and Texas, you had that in the Sweet 16, last second wins in this one. Going back to round of 32, going back to round of 16, or 64, you've had that countless times, and it happens year in, year out, and it never gets old. And this is no doubt one of the biggest moments, especially if they can go all the way to win the championship and win the championship 3 out of the last 4 years. What a moment it's going to be going back to this one. The last second, 0.3 seconds left on the clock to make a 3-point shot to upset the number one overall team in the tournament with Duke there. So again, what a crazy moment for them to pull out off there. 73-72 again, the score for that one. That made up all entirely for the rest of how the Elite Eight won. Because again, overall, there was moments over here and there, but not close to certainly it would have been a lot worse if it would have held on to be what it was for Duke, where they kind of pull away, they win, they blow out UConn and get a decent one margin there. It would have made it worse overall for that one. Again, the final four matches would have been great still, but disappointing for around there where it's just pretty boring, pretty bland, but the UConn ending really makes up for it there. So once again, going back to the Final Four matchup, UConn, Illinois on April 4th, as well as on the same day, later in that day there at 8:49 for Arizona and Michigan, 6:09 for the UConn, Illinois game. I cannot rave enough about this. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be exciting to see here. If I had to give my early predictions, again, going back to what I said in the beginning there is no statistics, there's no analytics, there's no me backing up with stats or facts, stuff like that. When I made this bracket going, back to last week or whenever the tournament started, the day before when I made the video, it's all just pure guessing. Again, it's just a casual fan making guesses, no logic behind it at all whatsoever here. If I have to guess my two teams to win, to move into the championship game, I'm going to pick UConn over Illinois. I'm going to, I don't know. I almost want to take that back. I almost want to say Illinois in this point here. You know what? No, I'm going to stick with my first guess. I'm going to go with UConn, find a way against Illinois, and I'm going to go Michigan. I'm going to have UConn and Michigan in the championship game here. I'm not going to go into depth into the scores and all that. I've got no stats, no facts, no anything to back it up there. Pure casual guessing. I have UConn and Michigan going to the championship game. So we'll see how that pans out there when we get to April 4th. Only again a few days away from that, and it's what I've said for countless other videos. It's insane how fast the tournament goes. It just feels like a day or two ago it was round of 64, and we are just like that right at the end of the tournament. Been amazing to watch. I know people have certainly been upset with not many Cinderella teams going far, or many as the last couple of years for this one, but certainly you have the moments there. Even teams that have Cinderella teams, the low seeds that fell short, they still gave the higher teams a run for the money. They've fallen short at the end there, but they still pushed some of those teams to the brink there. Some were able to advance, like High Point and VCU. Other ones, unfortunately, were not able to. Going back to the first round. I mean, think about how historic this would have been, especially for number 1 overall Duke to lose to Siena. They were leading, Siena was leading at that point there, in the game. So again, those Cinderella teams didn't win in advance, but certainly you still have the competitiveness, at certain points there. You don't get the wins, the amount of wins that you would like to expect, but certainly it is still there. And I think it will certainly go back to that. I think maybe next year you'll see a different trend for that. I don't think it's going to go in the direction where Cinderella's teams die out and it's just all the main teams. I get you looking in the tournament, and yes, you have 2 number 1 teams and a 2 and a 3 in the Final Four, but you almost have potentially 3 number 1 teams there with Duke that almost, if they just held onto the ball, would have been Duke and Illinois at this point here. So you'd have 3 out of the 4 number 1 teams at that point there. It gets a little bit boring, but still certainly entertaining. But again, that's a quick recap of the round of the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, and give my quick thoughts on the Final Four and my predictions for that one. So let me know your thoughts down below on the tournament, what game you liked, what game shocked you, and what your thoughts on the Final Four matchup is going to be, or sorry, the outcomes of the Final Four, and who's your championship picks.